Hello, thank you for joining me. My name is Elias Munsha. I'm coming to you live from Calgary, Alberta, here in Canada. I just want to see that you spread the word around as much as you can. I'll also be doing it here so that we get as many people as possible to tune in, okay? So I'll let you spread the word around and then we'll get started. Elias Munsha here again from Calgary, Alberta. Let me see here whether I can spread the word around as well. Where are we? Here we are. Today we're going to talk about privatization. Now, the reason why we must repeat same things over and over again is because there is a lot of lies, that go on around these issues. So I'm going to talk about privatization. I'm going to talk about ZCCM. I'm going to talk about mopani and all these transactions. It's very important for us to get to the truth because a lot of lies, a lot of false things are being spread around by particularly the Patriotic Front. If you have any question, just type it in. And I'm still experiencing difficulties with my page. Apparently, the main issue with my page is that Facebook made some changes, and so because of that changes, we can't do what we used to do before. We can't do what we were doing because of all these changes that they've done. Anyway, we'll try to see how it will go. I hope it, I hope it will work. And so if you are able to spread the word around, please do so. Just let as many people as possible come in and let us have a very, very frank discussion. We are going to have a very frank discussion because we can't let liars continue spreading lies about what happened during privatization and what privatization means. And so we've got to talk about this. Definitely. Okay. All right. So there's been a lot of questions that have arisen about privatization, and I just want to deal with some of those questions. But if you have some, please let me know, and please let me know, and let me answer some of those. Okay, it's very important that we deal with all those questions. It's better we deal with them. It's very important for us to deal with some of these questions. Okay, it's very important. Okay, so here is the issue, and I know that there is a lot of young people in Zambia who were not there in the 90s. You see, one of the things that the Patriotic Front seems to be doing now is that they are trying to play on the emotions of people. I'm calling it abusing people because it's one thing to tell people that you own something, but it's quite different for people to actually own that particular thing. So what the Patriotic Front is doing is they're saying that these mines are now ours and therefore it is yours. And so it belongs to the people of Zambia. But there are deeper questions that we need to interrogate about what it means to really own the resources. It's very important. What does it really mean for us to own the resources? Because you can be told that you own everything. And so what does that really mean? If you are actually sleeping hungry, the kwacha is nose diving and everything else, it's really meaningless. So what we need are tangible policies and tangible proposals that are going to help put food on the table for our people. Not necessarily what the Patriotic Front seems to be saying about what all this means. Okay, that's what it is. Now. Sorry about that. It appears like we are experiencing technical difficulties today for some reason. We're experiencing huge technical difficulties. Okay. We are having technical difficulties today. So if you can hear me just fine, please let me know. Otherwise, it appears like we have huge technical issues. Yeah, I'm just trying to resolve it. Hopefully we can have it resolved. All right, yeah. All right, okay. So I think we are still resolving it. We'll see. How is the picture quality? How is the sound and everything else? Yeah, we might have to do this again because this is does not seem to be working today for some reason. Okay, that is the issue that we have with technology sometimes. Yep, let's see. Whether this can work now. No, it doesn't seem to. Okay. So I think Evans is saying privatization is just a deliberate diversion from the real issues affecting Zambians. I think that's the truth. Privatization is really just a diversion because the Patriotic Front have failed to govern, they failed to rule properly, and so they want to find an excuse that they are going to use in order to distract the people of Zambia from the real issues that are happening. And so they are looking backwards instead of looking forward. So they've just failed to govern. And I think that is the main issue here. But there is a lot of younger people, younger ones, who really do not understand what went on during the privatization period. Because what the Patriotic Front is doing is it is lying that having these companies held by the government is in the best interest of Zambia, when in fact it's not. Having these companies be held by the government is a project that failed in the first place. The whole reason why, in fact, Kenneth Kaunda was removed in 1991 was because partly these parastatal problems. The people of Zambia got fed up with the corruption that was going on with the parastatal model, where the party in power had much more power than the business leaders. And that is what caused a lot of economic problems for our country. But the President Lungu wants to reinvent the same failed system of the 70s and the 80s. So when he says that he wants to make parastatal companies, it's not something new. It's not like it's something that Zambians have never tried before, okay? Zambians did try this model and it did not work. And there is nothing that President Lungu has put in place to see that the system works. It can't work. That is just the very basic thing. Okay, it's a model that cannot work. There is nothing that President Lungu is doing now with the parastatal model that is different from what Kaunda did from 1972 to 1991. There is no difference. It's the same thing. President Lungu fails to govern, and then he goes backwards to try and bring back a system that failed in the 70s. This is a recipe for failure. It is not something that inspires confidence or a great future for our people. It doesn't, okay? It's just a way for the ruling party to enrich itself, for the ruling party to continue its ways of corruption, all right? Government cannot guide government. Government itself cannot run government. How is it going to run businesses? It can't. Just common sense. This government has been failing at the Ministry of Water. It's been failing at the Ministry of Health. It's been failing at the Ministry of Energy. There is right now a shortage of energy, a shortage of oil, paraffin, petrol, diesel. There is nothing. Then how does this government that fails to govern its ministries now going to govern the businesses? You see, that is a fundamental difference that that we should be having right now. How can it? It can't. That is just the issue there. There is no way that this government is going to run business when it has failed to run all these ministries that require, in fact, that is not as complicated as the business environment is. So that is the particular problem that we have. That is the corruption that we have with this model, that it is not going to help our people, that it is not going to be helpful because we've tried it and it has not worked. Okay? Yeah, because we've tried it and it has not worked. And if something has not worked, why should we then continue trying to do the same thing over and over again? The same thing that has been failing. Why should we continue trying to do the same thing that has been failing? Okay. So far, from the 90s, after privatization, something very important happened. Zambia started growing, the economy started growing, our debts, our kaloba, got forgiven, and the only thing that was left was to build on the successes of the privatization story. That's it. However, President Lungu has changed all that. He's trashing what the other presidents did. So instead of building on their successes, this president wants to destroy everything, completely destroy everything, and take our country back to the Kaunda days. And those are the concerns that we have. Okay, it's not that Zambians cannot. It's not that Zambians cannot do these things on their own. Zambians can do quite a lot. Zambians can do quite a lot, but the parastatal model is a problem. And that is the major issue that we have. It's a problem that cannot inspire the confidence of our people. It is open to corruption. It is open to theft. That is where the problem is. Okay? Are we saying then that it means we have no faith in the Zambian people? No, we do have a lot of faith in Zambians. We do have a lot of faith in Zambians' abilities, but the failure of the parastatal model has got nothing to do with the inability of our people to do business. It has everything to do with the problem of the politics. It is a political problem. That is where the issue is. It is a political problem and not necessarily a lack of capacity or capability. It's not that our people have failed to run things on their own. It's the fact that the politicians and the political parastatal system that they've established leaves these companies up to corruption and theft and manipulation. And that is the concern that we have. Okay? So let everyone know that it is not because we do not believe in the abilities of our people. Zambians can own anything. Zambians can run anything, but Zambian politicians cannot run anything. They've failed. State House, they've failed. Ministry of Energy, they failed. Ministry of Health, they failed. Ministry of Infrastructure and Development, they failed. They keep borrowing Kaloba without even thinking twice about how they are going to repay it. So far, we have defaulted on the Kaloba. They're buying aeroplanes for themselves, for the president. They've bought a very expensive jet for the president. Have you seen the kind of priorities that the politicians have? And so that is the problem that we have with the current parastatal model. It has nothing to do with the fact that the people of Zambia can't do it. It has everything to do with the fact that the politicians cannot do it, and they have not established any system in place that is going to guard against danger and theft. Peter, what do you have to say? What do you have to say? Are you there? Yeah, I think we've lost Peter there. So those are some of the issues that we are having, and so it's never that we have no faith in the ability of Zambians to run things. In the 70s and in the 80s, Zambians were running things. In fact, ZCCM was being run by Zambians. That's not a problem. Edward Chamteta was an excellent manager. Francis Kaunda, as chairman of ZCCM, was a good guy. They were all great guys. But the problem wasn't that they were not great. The problem was that the political party system and the parastatal model elevated cadres over managers. That's what used to happen. And there is no assurance that President Lungu has changed that particular orientation. He hasn't. He's the chair of IDC. How does a president become chair of a business company? For goodness sake. This is a gentleman who cannot supervise what is going on at the Ministry of Health. How then is he going to supervise what goes on with IDC? The philosophy behind keeping government out of business is so that you do not spread inefficiencies, so that you're going to still have business that works efficiently and independently, independent of politicians. Politicians already have enough on their hands by running government. They should not be given businesses as well. They're doing enough already. They're doing enough damage already by running what? The ministries. How many ministries do we have? Is it 20 or 22? They are all run by these politicians. That is enough. We should not subject everything in Zambia to be run by politicians, because the problem with politicians is that they are inefficient. They can't efficiently run the government. That should not be spread over to them running business. Okay, we can't prosper like that. That is not a pathway to prosperity. That is a pathway to stagnation of our economy, just like what used to happen in the 80s. All right. So it's not enough to just say that I own, you own things. This is what used to happen under Kaunda. Kaunda told us that we owned everything. So Kaunda was telling us we owned the mines. Kaunda told us we owned the houses. That's what he was telling us. And yet the houses that you were living in belonged to the government. But Kaunda said that it was yours. Chiluba came into power and he said no. He decided to give the houses to individuals. That was individual ownership. That is the power of ownership. And when Chiluba did that, our country, first of all, the wealth of our people started getting wealthy because they suddenly realized the value of land, the value of ownership, the value of putting value to their own properties, the value of owning something. It came from Frederick Chiluba. This idea that a private individual in Chiwempala could own a little business on the side. It was during the time of Chiluba, not during the time of Kaunda. During the time of Kaunda, everything was dependent on the government. Even stores and shops. It was very few people that had stores or shops, or even a Kantemba during Kaunda, very few people. You had to obtain permission from the ward chairman in order for you to own a Kantemba. You couldn't even do it during that time. There was no ownership. Kaunda said that the people were the owners of the economy, but practically the people of Zambia owned nothing during Kaunda. It was all owned by the state. And the state that was subject to politicians, that was subject to cadres. That's what it was. UNIP members. They used to call them vigilantes. Those were the owners of the economy, and that's exactly the model that President Lungu wants to bring back into Zambia. A vigilante-oriented economy run by cadres. It is not going to help develop our country. It is going to destroy it. This gentleman is not developing the country, he's destroying it. But the problem is that there are so many people of my age, sometimes older than me, that are saying that, yes, let's go back to the Kaunda days where we used to receive free things. And a government can give you free things if the government can afford. But if the government can't afford, then where are the free things going to come? There is nothing for free, for goodness sake. Free education. Well, that is a lie that you got from the Kaunda regime. There was nothing for free. Free education. What are you talking about? There was only free education that was paid for early in the 70s. After the early 70s, everything else became borrowed. Kaunda was borrowing in order to give you what you were saying, free education. And then it brought us into huge problems, financial problems. By 1991, Zambia was owing billions and billions of dollars. And much of it was spent on what you were calling free education. In the 90s, my generation sacrificed a lot. We are the ones who really suffered and took the blunt of the Chiluba privatization. We took the brunt of it. We were the first ones to pay for exams in grade 7 and grade 9. We were the first ones to pay for grade 12 exam fees. We were the first ones to be paying user fees in school. And the reason was because Chiluba said that because we cannot continue borrowing in order to give you free education, you've got to contribute something towards your school. We needed to have a radical cut, a radical end to the government-dependent subsidies. And the issue is that government can do subsidies if it has money. That's the key. But if it does not have money, it means then that it is going to resort to borrowing. And the more it borrows, in the long run, it will continue putting pressure on its own finances, such that your country, our country, is going to continue stagnating in growth. After all that sacrifice we did in the 90s, all that sacrifice, the structural adjustment program from the IMF, and then we set ourselves on a very good trajectory of development with the sacrifices that we did, our generation and several other generations, huge sacrifices, job losses. And now the economy started building on private enterprise. But you see, but the Patriotic Front, unfortunately, they go back to the Kaunda days. They want to take everything back now. And what is happening is they have now gone back to the IMF. We escaped the IMF. We had sacrificed enough in the 90s for the IMF. Now President Lungu is bringing back the IMF. So I'm asking the question, for those of you that are saying that Lungu is on the correct trajectory, how does he then take us back to the IMF days? Chiluba brought in the IMF in the 90s because he was trying to cure the problems that we experienced as a result of the Kaunda regime. Lungu is bringing back the IMF to resolve the problems that he himself has created by overborrowing. And it's not that they will overborrow and spend money on something that is much more meaningful. You know, they overborrow, and what do they do with the money? They steal half of the money and then they build substandard infrastructure with the rest. And they buy themselves jets. And today they are trying to make you think like they are doing anything for the Zambian economy. No, they are not. And this idea that there is nothing we can do about it, oh yes, there is something we can do about it, definitely. There is something we can do about it. There's definitely something we can do about it. We cannot let a president take us back to the generation where we are coming from. For what? You know? Why should we do that? Why should we go back to the same fallen? Yeah. Why should we go back to the same fallen policies of Kenneth Kaunda? We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't agree to that. Okay. When we voted against Kenneth Kaunda in the 90s, it ended there. Kaunda had his own challenges during that time, but we should not be recreating the same problems in our time now. No. Yeah. Those are some of the challenges that we are facing, and I think President Lungu is receiving a lot of support from some University of Zambia lecturers, which is pretty sad and crazy. You see, people don't destroy, politicians don't destroy these countries alone. They usually have supporters from, from people that don't think rightly, unfortunately. Because what we need is that the University of Zambia is supposed to be telling Lungu Kwebati, look, this is what we were in the 90s, in the 70s and 80s. We've tried this model before. But I do understand there is an economist at UNZA who is telling Lungu to say, go ahead and nationalize things. Let IDC buy all the companies. And once you buy all the companies as IDC, then we are going to see economic prosperity. Which economic prosperity are you going to see under nationalization? Nationalization under the current model that we have. That's not the right way to govern our country. And ones particularly are educated. Some of the people that you are consulting, Generation Z and millennials, muletsa consult abantu abachire benefit from Kaunda. Ubwafya bulipo bwakwebati Kaunda impiare pera if you are free ale Congo la fie. Ubuteko ngana bukwata olupia bwino. It's okay. Nomba Kaunda ale Congo la fie. Tatwa kweto olupia yo ale Congo la fie. Elo nomba tuwala abantu ku skulu mumpia shan Congole. By the 90s, abankongole abakalo bama Shylocks bayisa bebere tupere Kaunda nalachita shanu pia tapadi. That is what led to most of the problems. Kaunda led folesha no bunga tama coupon. How can you ukula folesha bantu bunga imuchalo echidima? And people were like, no, it's okay. Not where remote to back to the Kaunda days. That is going to lead to stagnation of our economy. Look at the gains that we have done. Economic gains, our economic gains, the sacrifices that we went through. Number to wake a shape of the same problems, to wake a shape of the same model, to wake a shape of everything the same way. And it's because we are saying that all these are assets. Common sense. Assets are not just what you are saying. Assets. There is nothing like that. The issue that you need to ask yourself is, what are the liabilities? How much is it costing me to keep this asset moving? Those are some of the questions you need to ask yourselves. It's not just about assets. No. Look at the transactions they've done at Mopani. The same mentality. Yeah, it's Chandich. Even when it is giving you losses at Chandi. That's why in some of our yards, nakulile kuchwempala. Kwale bapanga napa kwebati. Bari tulika if you scrap cars. 7 and 10 if you scrap parichi Bedford, parichi Ifa, parichi Fiat, parichi Nshi, bari tulika panganda. And ngamle pitati pari pa benshi pari vefima assets if myotoka fieka if yafwa tafibomba at fima assets. So how much is it costing you in storage? How much is it costing you? You're spending much more money trying to sustain this asset. So kula Congo la poko number you try to sustain at Fimonek until you reach a point where you can't pay. That's exactly what happened in the 80s. That is exactly what happened with Kaunda. That is what brought us into the issues and problems. Nombashua, we did a very radical end to that kind of thinking. It was a very radical and painful. I'm telling you, it was painful for people to be declared redundant because Patiu. Why should you have 100 people, Patiu, when 2 people can do? So when 98 are declared redundant, it was extremely painful. But it was a sacrifice that the economy needed to make in those days. And the future of our country became better for those kind of sacrifices. What about paying school fees? Even to item grade 8 in 1991, 1991 and 92, 91 or 92, just when Chiluba became president, we were the first ones that took secondary. It was painful. Our parents sometimes could not afford. Grade 9 exams, I almost lost out on the grade 9 exam fees. I didn't have. It was painful. And I'm just wondering how many other people missed out on those exam fees, just like I almost did. I paid after May. In those days, you had to pay by March. I was paying around May, my exam fees for grade 9. Those are the kind of sacrifices that we went, and the pain. But when Lungu brings back the Kaunda economic model, he's trying to recreate that pain again so that we re-experience it. It may not be us, but it means then our children are going to re-experience the same pain that we experienced. That is not how you lead the country. Tefyo bateke chalo yo. Tefyo fidia. Chali nga mulekula nge chalo. Ama problems ya mwayo mwasova mu 64 mwayasha. Mulesova kwa problems yambi. Muletwale chalo pantanshi. Noti chile mwafiru okuteka nomba ero mwambo okulabweke ama okubweke shapo fire ona wire chalo efe mwabweke shapo. Bushe butuntulubo na ifo twikale fye tiyo mkwai chirifye tuwekeshemo kuli Kaunda. Tuwekeshemo kuli shireshine inshiko. Chirifye bwino. Isha ZCCM. By the time of 1991, ZCCM tayako ite machinery bwino takwa li machinery. Fyale sefa machine nga fyafwa ni shapwa. Kengita mkwete mpie tamkwete kwa kufumi. Ningufwa abalanda at mopani is billions and billions of dollars worth. It's very pathetic. We need to really have a clear conversation. That's exactly what happened. And again, I'm referring back to Kaunda because we have been through these things before. Imowakadodi, millennials and Gen Z, don't ever think that if you are new. We've been through this before. It is not always this high in price. Umtengo wa kopa ulachta dwindle a great deal. So number plana economy just around the prices of copper. When they are high, when they become low, it is a serious economic problem. That is exactly what happened in the 70s. At independence, very high prices of copper. Avena kaunda ba mamanya. Why should all these companies be in private hands? Ba mamanya. Kaunda nava nangu. And they were youths, badi baiche. 20s, 30s, I'm managing directors. Ba mamanya bebere Zambianization number tulirepo. Icharo chiwame. And then copper prices went down. And for almost a decade, copper prices remained down. So some estimates about Pangirat, you will have billions or anything like that. It never materialized. The machinery did not keep up. We had a huge payroll, huge workforce. But without the actual profits, huge profits coming out of the mines, it was very difficult. Now, President Lungu sees that the prices of copper are pretty high now. And then he plans everything. He borrows around that. He mortgages the future of our country on that basis. He buys mopani on that basis. And how much does he buy mopani at? $1.5 billion. He buys mopani. $1.5 billion. That is not how this country can be governed. It is not assuring development. This is the reason why the kwacha is underperforming. It's inconsistent because of inconsistencies from the leadership. Tabashipa. One. Secondly, there is no plan. Takwaba plan. You know, they are reactive. If into fiachtika they react, they are not acting. You know. So number if you were for if you achtika mumano ya bachita, umutimanga waima bachita. If you mumano fiance fia isafi mumano bachita, everything, anything, ichonse chapita bachita. Can't even sit down. How can we avoid repeating the same mistakes of the past? What are the solutions? Because mulen show that yo munsheta ulanda pama solutions ulanda fe pama problems. Like any miebe, I have Chiwempala plan. That's what I'm calling it. Chiwempala plan. It's a very wonderful plan. Chiwempala plan. Chiwempala plan. Plan number 1. Under Chiwempala plan, Chiwempala reforms. Number 1, encourage foreign direct investment. Plan number 1, encourage both foreign direct investment and private investment. And so it's very simple. Encourage abantu kuleta molo pia mchalo cheno. You cannot, as a government, be competing and trying to buy dollars as a government. No, it's people to bring you dollars. Businesses should be bringing you dollars, not dollars to pay Mopani or Glencore. No, that's a problem. It's other investors that should come and bring you dollars. Ngabaimba any mineral, buy ashtisha. They bring you dollars. $. You sit down with them and tell them, Bane, you took so much copper from our country. Where are the dollars? That is what it means to have oversight. Because they failed to oversee these company operations, they say number to ala pokorola pakobati fuebene to ishtire. Number wafe wakobati mumwebene teti muchite yo. Teti pant mwalifi woko chita. Nang vie pa no mwalifi woko chita. Muikala fie. Nang vie pa tamuchita nang vie pa no muikala fie. So how is it going to work? Plan number 1, encourage investment. That's how China grew. Even today, China is number 1 in foreign direct investment. Other countries are going into China and taking money into China. How can you not develop? Plan number 1, encourage foreign direct investment and private businesses. As a government, through your companies that you have, for example, ZCCM Investment Holdings, a vision ZCCM Investment Holdings was going to be holding certain strategic shares in all these strategic mining companies. The reason why you are holding strategic shares in all these companies so that you have people on the boards of those companies. Your people. Number 2, government companies are going to have some shares, not control, shares. The reason why you want shares is to be able to monitor inside the boardroom what is going on. This model is also happening in Botswana and in Namibia. The governments of Namibia and Botswana, they are not the ones that are controlling all these diamonds. No, they have shares in mining companies that are extracting diamonds. And the reason why they have done that is because they know if you as politicians go into mining, you are going to mess it up. So what they've done is private company has shares, they buy shares in there, private company is running the mines, and then what you are doing as a government is you have a person on the board, they are monitoring how things are going, they are bringing government policy. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So all this time, don't let the PF lie to you that they have no idea what was going on in the mines. They had board members at Mopani. They had board members at KCM. They have board members in Kansanshi. They have board members at, what are the names of these wonderful new mines we have? Kansanshi, First Quantum. They have board members all everywhere. So number, you strengthen the board members. You strengthen governance. You strengthen oversight as a government. That's what you do. So nomba te kulanda mwafiro wako chita oversight nombero mwalanda tuwala janda fyonse nomba fyala bave fyeso ubu afyo wako watinga tuwalanda fyala bave fyeso fyala palanga Ministry of Health mukachita mukalachita supply substandard condoms, because that's what government is good for, supplying substandard condoms. Epela takwa bana fimbio, it's supplying substandard. So the same issues fyafine supply substandard condoms. Nakuma company queen, they'll be supplying substandard fiance. Nakampompo. It will be substandard fiance. It will all be substandard. That's why number our concern is simple. Our concern is under my Chiwempala plan. And it's a very common sense plan. Encourage investment, strengthen oversight as a government. And then look at taxation. How are you going to tax people? Not just emotional. You see, anger is not a strategy. You know, kukalipa sana ati tulibakali tulibene tulibakali. No kukalipa sana. At the end of the day, what is the strategy? After mwakalipa mwafulwa mwabalanga ati mwe ali muliba nyoli. After all that, abamadega not sembe. All that, what is the plan? Very important. So under the Chiwempala plan, kofuire kwaba this idea ya kwebati what are you going to do about taxation? That's all. Tetimwe as a government. Mwe government kairi. Tamwishi vefyo these mining companies are making. Mwe government, you are unsure, you have no idea. How can Mopani, Glencore, or First Quantum tell you that you have no idea how much tax they need to pay? You bring numbers clearly. Hello, every year, ama numbers yako. So kulanda, imwe, mule pangako kanono, tuwakula chitako tax. Ingisheni abantu inchito, make sure that the Zambian suppliers are preferred, you know. And when I mean Zambian suppliers, I mean genuine Zambian suppliers, not amakadas, please. Sometimes mining companies, they're being put under pressure to register supplying companies that belong to cadres. If you are Ministry of Health, now parastatals even private companies. That's why these companies are saying that they'll be outsourcing supply. Kumbi. It's because government is not standing and putting its foot down to say, when we mean Zambian suppliers, we mean genuine suppliers. We don't mean cadres. Otherwise, amahani bikukansanshi bengi. Amahani bikulu mwana bengi. So as a government, you need to stand up and say, no, we are going to recognize Zambian suppliers, aba industry. Not that because somebody is ward chairman, aba supplier. And you know what they'll do? Ward chairman, ngaba supplier, acha register company finoso lero, acha register company, mairu atawi na tender to supply anything to Lumwana. No. Because they are going to supply substandard condoms if your child na kuli honeybee. Now imagine amak scandals ya honeybee everywhere, not only at Ministry of Health. Now imagine Ministry of Health honeybee, Mines honeybee, Lumwana honeybee, Mopani honeybee. Number. Imagine how distorted your economy is going to be if you continue having all these substandard suppliers. As a government, that is your role. So that I am a companies yarete chuma mchalo. Baba shani, baba confident about you as a government, you're going to stand up for common sense. That is the Chuempala plan. The next item under Chuempala plan is what government says is very important and very strategic. You know, again, I said it. Obukari is not a strategy. So they go back tukana, you know, ama investors. No, we don't need investors. Even America needs investors. For goodness sake, America, an extremely rich country, is talking about investors. Even when China and America, balaka, but under the table, but they all depend on each other. America requires investment. Canada, we require foreign direct investment. Switzerland, foreign direct, Israel, foreign direct investment. No, but how can we, as a government, allow a policy about no, tatulefua investment? China, ababe nama Chinese to ya komuku Kongo la kaloba. Foreign direct today, they are the biggest investment destination in the world. Now, how can you, as a government, be giving different messages? Even now, 17 million at wala ichsa invest ukaitwala kui. Are you going to take it to the government here the government kambo kuponda? You're not going to do that. Ukafuaya kutwala kukumbi wafya bwabapo. So kufuire kwaba okushipa. You know? A plan ilipo. Okay? The next plan under the Musha plan is what I'm calling a commission of inquiry into the viability of copper production on the copper belt. Again, the reason why we are doing it is to remove the mentality of chandi. Ati shanet no, mama ati shimaini chandi. Okay. Ati na ikope ingi sana na alikuwa hata fikope fingi. You know what I mean? That's not enough. It's not enough to just say we have so much copper. We have billions and billions of copper. That's not enough. We need to ask the question, how much should we spend to extract it? If copper, we've been mining copper for 100 years in Zambia, 100 years. Much of it was being mined by you know, Havana Siso rods and other Abasungu criminals. They stole it. So we've been mining on the copper belt for 100 years. Naturally, iliari pamulo. Ilatuale send through open pits. Naipua. Naipua. It's finished. So the only one remaining nayo underground. It has gone far much deeper. So you require more investment, more machinery, a lot more. So we need a commission of inquiry to study what is going on, a very open one. The reason why I'm suggesting an open one is so that the country is told the truth. Not you wabuteko. But they are claiming that at Mopani there is 50 billion. At Mopani has 50 billion worth of copper. How many years will it take us to get that? And how much do we need to take it out? Here's another radical idea. Our open pit mines right now are those open pits. They are some of the largest in the world. Turn some of them into tourist destinations. Copper Belt can become one of the largest tourist destinations in the world. Or copper tourism. We can build hotels right in the open pit. Hotel, open pit, hotel. Na abasungu baleisa. Fiafine baya mukutamba Victoria Falls, baisa mukutamba Mimbula Fitula open pit. Baisa mukutamba nchanga open pit. Baisa mukutamba mukuyikala, and they take pictures. Na mukwata nefma, you know, nefma you greet. What were we calling those things? Uglit. Filiefima very big armored vehicles if you ingira mu open pit. Abantu baletamba, they are taking pictures. It's tourism. The Copper Belt can become one of the largest tourism centers. All this can be done while studying the viability of the copper deposits that we have. Courageous leadership, okushipa, a leadership that invests in the future, not just in the past. A leadership that invests into viable and next economies. That is what we can do. On the Copper Belt, we have certain things. We have people who live close by, very urbanized. A very, very good workforce. Can we look at other industries? How can we partner with other industries? This is the law of how things are done. All these things are possible. But no, there is no lack of courageous. That's why in 5 years, Kwacha has gone down because government is competing. Dollars to pay other people. Maureen Bellany, I don't remember counter giving coupons for Millimeo. I learn something new all the time. Oh, Bellamy. Oh, this is very interesting. Yes. We were given coupons under Kaunda from about 1985 to 1991. Kaunda was giving us coupons. Ubunga. Tuale with that ubunga bwama coupon. Nombo bwafe bwako imwe chalo. You are the ones, you know, you are the farmers. Ubuteko kutibu hafumya kuisempia shagu mipero obunga bwa free. Ale Kongo la fie. Such that when by Shireisa, by IMF, how is that possible? Imwe as a government, why do you have so many expenses? Chilo bafumyako obunga bwa makupon twali chula twalisa tampoko lyobwali omukomo. At Chandi, even when they are giving you losses at Chandi. Shenda Zukas, at Chandichi, at Chabanan at Chandi, you know, imagine the mentality of Chandi. Yeah, how Mandinat Chandich. Chiluba delivered us from that mentality. Yokovet Chandi, you know, Chandi. No, you know. The question is, what is it doing? Production, what is it doing? The richest nations in the world are not necessarily the ones that have the biggest resources. The richest nations are those that know how the system works. Israel exports more diamond than diamond producing countries. Why? Those are kind of things that we need to be interrogating as a people. Xavier Chimba, on the other hand, is claiming that Mopani was doing well at the time. Well, I don't know what Dr. Xavier Chimba is saying. I can't speak for him. You know, there is this idea that Mopani was doing just fine. The reason why we need to have foreign investors and talk to them is because we as Zambians, we need to, I use Bemba, okuiba mano, meaning they come and then you begin thinking the way they are thinking. Very important. Why do investors want to invest into copper? They're not doing it because of charity. You know, these companies do not, who buys shares in things like Glencore? You know, it's ordinary investors. People buy shares in Glencore. So you begin thinking what they are thinking. That's the reason why when they are negotiating this deal, they know exactly what they are doing. They know that the government was desperate. They knew that the government wasn't thinking. So they quickly slipped in that agreement with a naive government. Because this naive government was told, Mopani has $50 billion worth of copper. What is 1.5 billion? Just give us 1.5 billion. Chirife na imwe. And ZCCM Investment Holdings. And by the way, a very brilliant CEO, Mavuto Sakala. Is it Mavuto Sakala? Very brilliant CEO. Ngabalela ndaba Mavuto Sakala iwapa kulanda tiana sango muntu aba eba sambirela eba ishiba fyonzi. Ngabalela ndefindo. But you just need Efiadina Edward Shamtete, Efiadina Francis Kaunda, Efiadina managers Bonsaba Kagonda. They were extremely brilliant. If he paisha, ni if he never go to a politician, Bambo taking no kuchita misunderstand fintu because we politician vena ngamwasa that is 50 billion worth of resources. Hey, yes, indeed, fiesu. And in the meantime, that company locks you into a 1.5 billion liability. So the question will be, will ZCCM collect that money from Mopani? No, it won't. These are the same guys that have failed Zambia Railways. Zamtel is still undercapitalized and underutilized. Zambia Lime company is the same thing. They're stealing at Ministry of Health. They're stealing everywhere. And you think that they're going to do anything different at Mopani? They won't. No. Investors buy Zambian mines that went 5 million, and yet Zambia is buying. Yeah. GRZ has tremendously failed to run ZESCO. Imagine, ZESCO, okuleta fyama right, mayanda, no kulipirisha. They failed. Have the concerns from Miles been addressed by the government? Chile Shekaoma, no. You see, because what Miles did was, he looked at the transaction, 1.5 billion. And he knew this is not genuine. This is not something that a government which has interest on the people would do. He knew it. Yeah. So he asked the question to say, was this transaction done just to enrich a select few? Who were the lawyers? Who were the accountants? Who were the advisors on this thing? Who were the evaluators? Who were all these? He knew. And how much money have they made out of this $1.5 billion liability transaction? We need mines to go on automation, the expertise that investors are supposed to bring to optimize production. Edrix and Sepe, yes. And so the problem is not really with investors. The problem is with government. You know? That's why if you are government, you need to bring in investors that do that, but also be very frank with investors. Be frank with the people of Zambia as well and tell them exactly what it is. Shenda, selfish and greedy politicians, and they think the citizenry is blind. Christian Musenga, I don't see any logic in what PF is doing if they claim to run Mopani. Why did they sell Cold Mine? Cold Mine. Don't get it. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for joining me. So I'm going to be under quarantine for the next 14 days because one of our team members tested positive to COVID. So we are going to self-isolate, but we continue working from home. And so I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining me today. And God bless you, and God bless our country. Thank you.